go today from the sublime to the ridiculous in terms of, and what a great comparison, I think, clip to clip, this last one to this next one is, because it was very awkward watching the five how to, have to wrestle with the concept of positive bipartisanship. And again, only about an enemy, but still, not, we're not talking about a military issue about, weapons of war and the like. This was literally about the danger of TikTok, which it is. End of fucking story. And then we jump over to what's happening inside the Republican Party. So you've got bipartisanship. Hey, Dark Brandon. You've got bipartisanship happening on the, in reality, on Earth 1. And on Earth 2, look at this shit. First of all, Ben Shapiro doesn't like it when you giggle at his beard. You can tell. I like it when somebody tries to, grow a beard to like, people think I'm a boy. I want to be I'm tired of being a marionette. Yeah. But look at this. This is a fight between DeSantis and Trump in hell, I think, which, by the way, is not accurate because hell froze over today with the bipartisanship that happened in Congress. So I don't know how much this stands up. But this is about this is called May the Best Man Win. So I guess it's going to be a draw, or both of them are just going to tap out at the same time. Again, best in this situation being lesser of two evils. In that, I suppose, is that the fight? The battle between, and this is the description. The battle between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump has now heated up. There was a sit-down interview set to air today between DeSantis and Piers Morgan that is guaranteed to stir the pot for 2024. Ooh, it's super exciting. It's gonna stir the pot. Look at, and by the way, look at this. Hold on, I have to drag this down. Look at this shit. If you want to know whose side Ben Shapiro is on, look who he gave teensy tiny little hands. I know there's a bit of perspective going on, but that's awkward. Here's DeSantis, who's got sausage fingers, and then look at Trump. He only gets the one hand, and it's weedy beady beady. I think it's already been settled in the Shapiro household.
Well, folks, the battle between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis is now broken out into the open. It's getting kind of interesting. Last night, the big news was that there's an interview.
Very exciting, and that's good. You wouldn't maybe consider just adjusting the treble and bass on your microphone? I mean, if you're going to bother to grow a beard, I mean, there's a list priority-wise. There's things you can control, things you can't control. I understand that. But all right.
Interview between Ron DeSantis and Piers Morgan.
Oh, it's very loud. Yeah. Sorry. Between Ron DeSantis and Piers Morgan. This is another episode of Ben Shapiro yammers loudly in a Starbucks over his laptop.
It is supposed to air on Thursday. There's a sit-down interview between Piers Morgan and DeSantis.
Who are you FaceTiming with? Boy. Who are you? Why are you looking at your laptop like a lonely gamer on a bus?
It is unclear when exactly this was filmed. And that's a little bit important simply because
Ron DeSantis is a little bit important. It's a great description of him.
DeSantis opens up on some of his critiques of Donald Trump. If this was filmed, for example, after Trump had made clear that he thinks he's going to be arrested this week, and this is a major tactical blunder by DeSantis. If it was filmed before, you'd sort of understand what he is doing. In any case, we're going to go through the politics of this. Here's what DeSantis actually has to say. So Piers Morgan.
So DeSantis gives an interview and says something, and then they announce they might be arresting Trump, and then that occurs, and it was a blunder by DeSantis to get on with saying what he would or wouldn't say normally because of the possibility that Trump might get arrested or might not get arrested any particular week. My God, man, how has the RNC not hired you yet?
Asked DeSantis about the fact that Trump has been nicknaming him and calling him Ron DeSanctimonious and all the rest of this kind of stuff. And here was DeSantis' good answer.
His good answer. And by the way, if I may, we'll see it first, and then I'll
What is your favourite nickname that Trump's given you so far? Is it Ron the Sanctimonious or Meatball Ron?
Well, I can't.
I think even he went off Meatball Ron.
I can't. I don't know how to spell the Sanctimonious. I don't really know what it means, but I kind of like. It's long. It's got a lot of vowels. I mean, so we'd go with that. That's fine. You can call me whatever you want. I mean, just as long as you also call me a winner.
And
I guess you're the winner of the Dipshit of the Year award. No harm, no foul.
it's that last line that DeSantis is going to run on, that he is, in fact, a winner. And as we'll get to in just a second, when it comes to the politics of the primary, there are really three issues at play. And the first one is, who do you think is more of a winner, DeSantis or Trump? Because I have a particularly, I don't know, neither. I effectively think that at this point, this is a two-man race. He also got into some...
Well, if you agree that either of them is a man, I will give you that in the parlance of our time, they are both biologically male. In terms of them being men, however, I have my doubts.
his deeper critiques of Trump as president. He said, I also just think in terms of my approach to leadership, I get personnel in the government who have the agenda of the people and share our agenda, which, of course, is correct. I mean, one of the big problems for Trump is that he was constantly staffing around him people who did not share his agenda, including, by the way, Michael Cohen. I mean, Michael Cohen.
Excuse me. That wasn't his fault. He's just trying to keep his campaign promises, Ben. He said to the American people he was going to bring in the best people. The best people are, by the very definition of being best in any category, going to be at odds with anything that Donald Trump thinks up. You can't be the best at anything and agree with Donald Trump on that very thing. You will be broke and in shitty physical condition. Hashtag the best people.
Was his personal lawyer for years, and it is Michael Cohen's testimony upon which this Manhattan DA is now going to bring this flimsy indictment against Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, flimsy, but I think a good phase one of his legal troubles, because by the time we get to Jack Smith's trial, it's going to be fucking gnarly. It's going to be hard to argue. As a matter of fact, all the arguments that that Alan Bragg's case against him was flimsy and weak and stuff, like, I don't know how you react to what White is bringing against him, other than, now that's a case. That Bragg shit was a bunch of baloney. But you got to give it to, honestly, these charges are fucking for real. This isn't any of that chintzy Alan Bragg stuff that seems just designed to embarrass him about the fact that he's a porn star fucker in front of all of his evangelical base to kind of drive them away. No siree, Bob. This is, I'm impressed. And the Georgia case? Also excellent. By comparison.
Trump has surrounded himself his entire career with not the best people.
But enough about his adult children.
As it turns out, he was constantly firing people inside his administration. He had an incredibly leaky administration. He didn't fire all the people in the deep state who were targeting him, for example.
That's because there is no deep state. But also because he didn't even understand what people did.
And that was one of the things that DeSantis pointed out about, for example, Anthony Fauci. He suggested that it was a mistake.
Anthony Fauci is not the deep state. Anthony Fauci is the head of the CDC. He's the NIH head. He's a point person. The deep state would be the shadow people below that are making decisions and, that you can't override. It has to be nothing but like CIA plants throughout the entire government. That would have to be, if there was a deep state shadow government, that's the only way it could function. They'd have to have the ability to crash your plane or push you out of a window, Russian style. And if they aren't, and they're the person who stands next to you at the podium while you elbow them out of the way and go, on second thought, maybe a light bulb up your ass. Try that, then maybe you're the deep state.
Mistake for Trump not to fire Anthony Fauci, considering he was the president of the United States, which, of course, is correct.
Not anymore.
DeSantis said, we really focus on knocking out victories day after day. If I get involved in all the undertow, I would not be able to be an effective governor.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word undertow if I was the governor of Florida. That's going to bite you in the ass at some point.
He says, with regard to Fauci, he suggested that Fauci probably should have been fired by Trump and that there was really no reason for Trump not to fire him.
Yeah, make sure you pull up what you were talking about, because again, little boy chats with his laptop in an empty office is a great show, and I'm riveted every time it comes on. But it would be nice if the plot moved a little. It was a little snappier.
That his leadership style in Florida was very different by nature, which of course is in fact true. Again, all of those critiques are well taken. All those critiques are very real.
Great. So we could have just watched what he said. Thank God you're here, Ben.
Unlike the Trump critiques of DeSantis, which are basically calling him fat by calling him Meatball Ron, or suggesting that he is holier than thou with Ron DeSantis.
Did anybody get the idea that Meatball is a fat reference? That he's fat shaming him? I think of it as a New York way of saying dumbbell. Right? Guy's a meatball. Like, he's nothing, like, it's like meathead. It's in that realm. Does Ben think that Trump is fat shaming someone for real?
Or tweeting out random accusations about him supposedly harassing underage girls or maybe boys. Literally a thing that Donald Trump tweeted over the weekend. Everything that DeSantis says is substantive.
Yes, but that didn't stop Ben from supporting Trump as best he could during his entire presidency.
But that's not...
And agreeing to vote for him again if he's the nominee.
Not really the question here.
No, of course not.
The real question here is a strategic one. Okay, because this primary is going to be about three main issues, I think.
Okay.
The first one, as I mentioned, is who is more of a winner?
Joe Biden. I mean, if you're just talking about legislation.
So here, you have the evidence of your eyes, and then you have the evidence of your heart.
Oh, no. This freeze frame perfectly displays the actual psychology going on in Ben Shapiro's carcass right now after saying that out loud. Fucking hell. It's about my heart, man. That's why I love Trump. The Lord sent him to drive out the deep state cabal of baby-sucking witches from outer space.
Right, and these two things are going to be in a battle for Republican voters. The evidence of your eyes that Ron DeSantis is more of a winner than Donald Trump, at least over the past 4 years.
Well, I don't know. How did DeSantis's insurrection attempt go? Was it successful? Is that how he got to be governor? I wish I gave a shit about Florida politics.
Because if you look at the last election cycle, every major Senate candidate that Trump endorsed lost. Herschel Walker in Georgia, Blake Masters in Arizona, Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, Don Baldock in New Hampshire.
Yeah, but in his defense, those people weren't, by any measure, the best people.
All of them lost. A bunch of congressional candidates that Trump liked didn't do particularly well in the last election cycle. And that was following a 2021 election cycle in which Donald Trump was almost solely responsible for the loss of 2 Georgia Senate seats, which resulted in the biggest spending binge in American history under Joe Biden. Because
holy shit, are we watching David Pakman right now?
if Republicans...
I'm sorry, David, that was rude of me. I didn't mean that. Don't take that to heart.
Republicans even hold one of those.
You don't look anything like Ben Shapiro, and I think you could grow a fantastic beard. As a matter of fact, I stand by the fact that you look like if Jake Gyllenhaal decided to do the dinner theater version of The Machinist. Work with me.
Then
if I have to deal with Danzig in a dryer or Gene Simmons' illegitimate kid, you can take that one. God damn it.
None of that spending gets passed. So Donald Trump's record since 2016 has been one of unbridled failure.
All right, cool, nice. All right, well, that's so we should put you in, I guess, the undecided camp. Is that where we're going? This is, by the way, pair this with the bipartisanship we saw around TikTok in the Congress earlier today, and understand that this is Ben Shapiro, who's like his organization, the Daily Wire, is one of the power punchers in the right-wing media sphere automatically gets pushed to the front of the fucking line in all kinds of areas, Facebook and Twitter and all these places. And this dude just said this.
In terms of elections, not in terms of policy. He did a lot of wonderful things.
Hold on. Well, hold on. 1 second. Back over here. Shit. He said this.
Biggest spending binge in American history under Joe Biden. Because if Republicans even hold one of those seats, then none in Arizona, Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, Don Baldock, and didn't do particularly well in the last election cycle. And that was following a 2021 election cycle in which Donald Trump was almost solely responsible for the loss of 2 Georgia Senate seats, which resulted in the biggest spending binge in American history under Joe Biden. Because if Republicans even hold one of those seats, then none of that spending gets passed. So Donald Trump's record since 2016.
By the way, that is not true. Just for the record, like the idea that across the board they were going to kill the infrastructure bill or any of the, or even the rescue package, it had we not gotten control of the Senate in this particular instance, is bullshit. Because all of those districts, especially in the Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, that region and into Florida, benefited enormously from not just the infrastructure bill, but the CHIPS Act and the rescue plan. They like, all those guys were like, they're going to be rolling in this federal funding and these tax breaks that go along with these industries because of what they have there. So no, none of that would have, like, they may have tried to cut it down a little bit, but it would have passed. I got news for you. McConnell would have made sure it did.
Has been one of unbridled failure.
That's what he said. There we go. This is the Donald Trump has been just since 2016, unbridled failure. Shit, this makes Tucker Carlson's texts look like love letters from Kim Jong-un.
In terms of elections, not in terms of policy. He did a lot of wonderful things as president, but in 2018,
Sure.
he got his clock cleaned. In 2020, he lost to Biden, and Republicans outperformed him along nearly every other line. In 2021, he lost 2 Georgia.
But list the policies. You said he won on policies. He was great on policy. Like, what? What part? What policy? Getting rid of the cops program and the pandemic response team, and 2 years later having the biggest riots since fucking the 60s all across the goddamn country that could have not happened had Derek Chauvin been bounced by a program the Obama administration, along with Joe Biden, had already put in years ago, but he just bounced it for the sake of anything that has Obama's name on it. He wants to kick to the curb. At the exact same time, he did the pandemic response team, and we ended up 2 years later, almost to the day, ending up having to deal with a pandemic that he had his fucking trousers dropped on.
Georgia Senate seats by single-handedly intervening in those Georgia Senate races. And in 2022, all of his handpicked candidates in a very competitive Senate run for a Republican Party lost. So that is a bad record. Meanwhile, DeSantis in 2018 got elected by the thinnest of margins by 0.4% in the state of Florida, and he turned that into a 20-point victory in Florida, and he picked up congressional seats, and he won a supermajority in the legislature. There was a wave, a red wave, in 2022, but
in one state.
it was relegated to the Sunshine State. That was the only red wave in America.
Yeah, then it's not a wave, especially in a state that is a peninsula in the, obviously in the weakest possible terms, because it's a little dangly if you do say so, but surrounded by blue waves, as it were.
Was happening in Florida. So in terms of just the pure evidence of your eyes, when you look at who is more of a winner, at least in the foreseeable past.
Yeah, but what about my heart, man?
What you see is that DeSantis is more of a winner.
My heart, bro.
However, that's at war with the battle inside the Republican heart.
That's right. My heart is in a battle with my brain right now. Thank God I live in the heartland, not the brain land.
Because there is this myth of Trump that's been built.
But what about the kidney?
Since 2016. And the myth of Trump goes something like this. No one could have beat Hillary Clinton except for Trump.
He didn't. He lost by 3 million votes. He won the Electoral College because a lot of people didn't like her on the left and voted against her because they were mad about Bernie Sanders. 75,000 of them. Fuck those people. Hopefully they've learned their lesson. He didn't win. He didn't beat her. And arguably, I got news for you. Kasich could have won. Yeah. John Kasich could have won that election. He appealed across the board. Those folks that didn't vote for Hillary or held their nose or whatever, or all the fucking misogynistic assholes who are allegedly on the left side of the ledger but have their issues somehow, they would have voted for Kasich. He's not so bad. In the same exact fucking way they voted for Trump or didn't vote at all. Same shit. There's no question about it.
No one.
John Kasich is the governor of Ohio at that time. Like, he was doing great. He was moving up. And the only reason he didn't get up there is because Jeb and Trump and stuff ate all the news.
Hillary Clinton was a juggernaut. And Trump came along, came out of no.
I think Hal would be relentless if he had a dun 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 button. I agree. But it would have to, like, the camera would have to go dunk 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 like that.
Nowhere. Put down everything he was doing. Came down that escalator. Faced all.
Put down everything he was doing. What? Having affairs and allowing the Russian mob to run a pimping organization out of his fucking building? You mean that kind of stuff? That shit's on autopilot.
All the slings and arrows, up to and including the P-word tape and all the rest of it.
That's not a sling or arrow, motherfucker. That is a self-inflicted wound. If assholes like you weren't running interference for him during that period, that would have been the end of it.
Just kept walking and ended up defeating Hillary Clinton. And
no, he lost the popular vote.
it was a miracle. It was a miracle because, again,
yeah, that's the way I look at it. A miracle. A man who brags about sexually assaulting women beats a woman running for office who's eminently qualified. That is a miracle, Ben. Yeah. I mean, if you desperately fear the idea of a female president, I suppose it would be a miracle.
that relies on another piece of mythos, the 2012 mythos, which is that Democrats were never going to lose another election. After 2012, Democrats bought into the idea that they had created a durable minority-majority coalition, along with college-educated white ladies, and that coalition,
along with college-educated white ladies,
would be unbreakable for the rest of time. After Barack Obama won re-election in 2012, beating Mitt Romney despite losing something like 3 million votes from 2008 to 2012. Normally, that doesn't happen. If you're an incumbent, you usually gain votes. You don't lose votes and still retain the presidency, but that's exactly what Barack Obama did. And so a theory went out from the Democrats that Democrats would never lose again. And that was the theory that a lot of...
Yeah, I don't remember people running on the idea like, we fucking got this. I mean, you could argue that that's how Biden won. That's their complaint. He was in the basement the whole time. But I would argue that Biden staying home and actively campaigning from home while the rest of us were stuck at home, instead of having big rallies that would be super spreader events, was the greatest campaign gimmick of the 21st century so far, and maybe the last 40 years. Brilliant. What do you do in a pandemic to show leadership? Don't go out in a fucking pandemic. It was a lesson that Trump was incapable of learning because of his own ego and his own lack of, a foundational element to his ego, or a substructure to it that kept it up without constant adulation. It's no wonder that he resonates with evangelicals so much, who focus not on the behaviors that are expected of them as Christians, but on the constant praise element, that as long as you're raising your hands and clapping in church and singing all the hymns and showing God your fealty, you don't even have to act like it the rest of the time. You just got to sell it. It's just the sales part of it. It's the same thing. That's why Trump makes sense to them. It's all about lifting him up and praising him and singing his name and having fucking icons and pictures of him around. It's the same idiocy. And you're not responsible for any quality behavior at all. As a matter of fact, in terms of Trump, you're rewarded by being as shitty as possible.
Republicans bought into after 2012 as well. And then along comes Trump, and he breaks that myth, right? The myth is now that Donald Trump is a unique character who is able to defeat all the forces of political gravity. They just don't apply to him. They don't apply to him. And when presented with the evidence of your eyes, right, which is that he lost in 2018, he lost in 2020, 2021, 2022, when presented with that evidence, people go with the evidence of their heart very often.
I see. So what if you're a regular Ben viewer and you've accidentally stumbled upon this and you don't quite understand what he's going? What he's saying is that you're a big dum-dum. You're a moron. That you can't deal with reality at all. And so you go with this sort of like emotional, dare I say, chick response in the parlance of the crowd, so you understand what I'm saying. And what he would, what he would hope eventually is that you ignore your stupid heart and go back to your stupid brain that apparently thinks DeSantis is a winner.
I'll say, well, he didn't lose. He didn't lose. All Republican presidents are going to lose the midterms. People usually lose the midterms. And then in 2020, when Trump claims that fraud happened and that he lost fraudulently, a lot of people are like, well, he is a miracle man from 2016. So if he lost in 2020, it must have been because the only way you can defeat a miracle man is to cheat. So,
by the way, thank you, Ben Shapiro, for just saying Miracle Man, so I can remind people of the most slept-on Ozzy Osbourne album ever, No Rest for the Wicked, the album that debuted Zakk Wylde as his guitar player, that is just brutal from start to finish. And the song Miracle Man, which is about Jimmy Swaggart's whole bullshit about, I have sinned against you, that whole story is fucking awesome. In many ways, No Rest for the Wicked is another variant title of Miracle Man. And then the fact that Zakk is singing the chorus Miracle Man through a talk box while soloing is just awesome. It's a great fucking record. And it applies in this situation to Trump. It in many ways is a perfect theme song on so many fronts. Now, Jimmy, he got busted with his pants down. Repent, you wicked sinners, you righteous clown. It's so good. Like, Ben, and by the way, I know Ben's a big Zakk Wylde fan. That's why he's growing the beard.
must have been that the left cheated, not by setting the rules differently. I agree. That was a cheat. Not by
the way, also one of Ozzy's best opening laughs in a song ever. He does it fairly frequently. I would go with the best one on Miracle Man. And the riff is just, don't get me started. I wish Johnny Million was here to just morally high-five me on this because he knows I'm right.
using the media as the baton. I agree that's a cheat. But by actively changing the nature of vote outcomes in states, as Donald Trump suggested, without evidence that they had, and then refused to give him the presidency along Donald Trump's lines by certifying elections that were illegitimate, and Mike Pence, and all of that kind of.
Really? When did this all happen? I must have slept through the whole thing. This is so weird. Why would you even bring this up? Do you know what he's talking about? This is crazy. Like, did it? That sounds so nuts.
Of stuff.
By the way, yes, Zach does rule. Thank you for pointing that out, K-Jug Doug Love. And for the record, 1918 Eternal is and Stillborn, just they must be in heavy rotation in your household if you're a metal fan at all. And metal fans are happier people, and that's just not me saying that. That is clinically proven.
So that's the mythos. It's the head versus the heart when it comes to,
or the kidney versus the asshole.
DeSantis versus Trump in terms of who is more likely to be a winner, which is a big issue in a Republican primary.
Isn't it?
Well, Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump are vying for that Republican nomination. Joe Biden continues to crater the economy, and this means that you should be diversifying your...
Oh, fuck this asshole. He's going to sell his gold, isn't he? Watch this. Wait. Yeah, there it is. Birch Gold Group. Yep. And fucking text Ben to Benny Ben, and then live read. Shut the fuck up.
Tactical blunder for him to do this interview with Morgan, where he actually opened up the guns. And this is why I really, really suspect that this interview with Piers Morgan was done before all the chaos of the last weekend. Remember, it's only Wednesday right now. It takes a while in post-production to actually put this stuff together. They're using it as a preview.
Post-production.
For the interview tomorrow night. So my guess is, again, that this interview with DeSantis was done probably Thursday or Friday before all of the chaos of the weekend, in which it became clear that Trump is likely going to be indicted sometime this week. That third question, that tertiary question, is the question of loyalty to Trump. So let's just get this straight.
Hold on. All right, well, shit. If the other candidates have to answer the question of loyalty to Trump to even be considered, and Trump considers anybody running against him, period, to be disloyal, it is a self-defeating system.
The 2024 primaries are going to be a loyalty test to Trump. Trump wins. I mean, it's just that simple. Because there is no one more loyal to Donald Trump than Donald Trump.
I'm so upset I'm not writing this down. Jesus Christ. Can you imagine me, fucking hell, can you imagine me, in all seriousness, talking about Joe Biden this way? Imagine a world where Joe Biden loses this next election and then he runs again and he's teed up to basically win the next one in a lot of people's minds on our party side. Like, fuck, the guy to beat 4 years from now is going to be Joe Biden. And anybody has to, if you even dare to step foot, like, can you fucking imagine? Like, I'm embarrassed for them. Who the shit? You don't realize that you are in a fucking cult. If you even have to have this loyalty conversation, you're done. It's a self-canceling feature, stupid. God damn.
I mean, end of story. If the question is, which candidate is going to show the most loyalty to Trump, Trump wins. We played this game in...
Because he'll be loyal to himself. How do you say that out loud? I don't even know why you add that one. Like, that's something you scrawl on a piece of paper at the beginning when you're prepping your show and you're like, what the fuck am I talking about? Never mind. Like that, like, what the hell?
It's just that simple. Because there is no one more loyal to Donald Trump than Donald Trump. I mean, end of story. If the question is, which candidate is going to show the most loyalty to Trump, Trump wins. We played this game in 2016, by the way.
Good Lord. How do you even, like, process that level of idiotic egoism as an actual foundational, one of the top 3 foundational principles for an upcoming presidential election? Motherfucker. Like, if this was like a local, like, small town mayor's race where everybody goes to the same church and all that kind of shit, and so it's always this, well, everybody's husbands and wives are sneaking around, there's all this stuff, and it's all about, well, if you don't vote for, fucking what, the Murdaws, there, you're gonna catch shit later on. What the hell? This is a the presidency of the United States of America. How in the hell are you not punching yourself in the dick right now?
You'll recall that Ted Cruz in 2016.
No, I don't. I blank out everything Ted Cruz does as soon as I'm done laughing.
Basically tried to ride Trump's coattails all the way, never saying a bad word about Donald Trump the entire race, and then hoping that Trump was going to fall over and Ted Cruz was going to take the nomination. And it turns out that was a horrible strategy because he rode Donald Trump's coattails all the way to second place until Donald Trump turned around and just clocked him directly in the face by calling his wife ugly and his dad the murderer of JFK. And
yeah, but that's not a tactical problem. That's because Ted Cruz is apparently delusional enough to think that the United States general public likes him in any way. Because that's a huge... Ted Cruz, most people think of him as number 2.
Cruz took it. And then he had to go to the primary, and then he went to the convention, and you'll remember that he tried to have the baby. And listen, I know Ted, I really like Ted.
As in cut in half, not have a baby. I don't know.
It's a tactical blunder of extreme proportions, right?
No, it wasn't. It was a material blunder entirely. It was Putin-level blunder. You were apparently under the, you were living under an umbrella of bullshit of your own construction that blocked out any sunlight that would disprove any fantastical theory you would have about yourself. And you ran headlong into a battle you absolutely were not prepared for and were doomed to lose from the start. The fact that Ted Cruz was the second choice, even in Ben Shapiro's mind, shows that he's even more deluded about this now than he was then. And I mean, Ben.
Ted said, you'll remember at the RNC convention in 2016, follow your heart, which all of the Trump, he thought he was going to split the baby. He thought he was going to be saying to the Trump voters, vote for Trump, and to the not Trump voters, don't vote for Trump. And everybody took it the opposite way. All the not Trump voters were like, we can see what you're doing. You kind of want us to vote for Trump. And all the Trump voters were like, you want us not to vote for Trump. So he ended up with no friends, right?
Uh-huh. What's that like, Ben? This is the story of how little Teddy had never had a friend again. Why don't I have any friends? Well, little Teddy, part of it's because you're an unbearable asshole. No one wants to be around you. I know, but so is Trump, and he has lots of friends. No, he has business acquaintances and people who owe him money. And he owes money to mean people who he threatens to beat up the people who owe him money if they don't pay him the money that they owe him that he lent to them from someone else. Why is your nose bleeding? I'm so lost.
You can't play that game. If the game is loyalty to Trump, no one beats Trump. End of story. Done. The primaries are already over.
Again, what a goofy fucking premise.
I don't think it's quite about that. I don't think the primaries are quite over.
Okay, so you gave us 3 standards, and you don't think it's about those 3 standards. Great. You've got a little over 40 seconds left. Bring it home, big boy.
I think that the Republican feeling about Trump is not that you can't criticize Trump. I think the Republican feeling about Trump is generally you cannot give ammunition to people who spend their lives criticizing Trump.
I'm back up. I'm confused too, Ben. What the fuck?
It's quite about that. I don't think the primaries are quite over. I think that the Republican feeling about Trump is not that you can't criticize Trump. I think the Republican feeling about Trump is generally you cannot give ammunition to people who spend their lives criticizing Trump. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show continues right now. You're not going to want to miss it.
Oh, God. That's the bailout? The rest of it is ad? The rest of it is a bounce. Whatever. You're not allowed. The rule is you can criticize him all you want. You just can't help other people criticize him who do it a bunch. Like, you can't buy Ann Coulter's books or some. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Honestly, God, like this is. I'm beginning to think that maybe the weight of the beard is. Maybe he's not growing a beard. Maybe he just woke up on a desert island and he's dehydrated. Maybe it's too much rum. Maybe just Ben Shapiro's just slipping. There is an Adderall shortage, but he's still speaking as fast as you. Maybe that's what it is. He's run out of Adderall and he's just using speed. And the speed keeps him talking really fast and he keeps prattling through this. But it's not quite the synaptic benefit he was getting from a pure nootropic, in this case, Adderall. I think maybe that's a possibility. Or you can only maintain the illusion of intellect for so long with nothing to show for it. That's probably what it is. I think he's just tired. That's what it is. Ben's just given up. He's just he's sick of it all. He's sick of carrying the weight of the intellectual dark web all by his lonesome. He just wants to retire to a Starbucks in the woods and occasionally, in between bouts of not bringing his wife to orgasm, head down to Home Depot and buy a board he can put in a bag because, whatever gets you to the other side, I think, is, sexually, it's up to you. I'm not. If the board has a hole in it, so be it. It's none of my business. None of yours. You're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. I think maybe this is an illness brought on by the bipartisanship that happened. I think everybody's just in fucking shock.